There's pretty much one guarantee in college football each and every year. That is that the Texas Longhorns will be extremely hyped, and that more than likely they're not going to live up to the hype. The Longhorns program has been faced with crippling expectations over the last decade, and they have not really been able to live up to it. They had their Sugar Bowl win over Georgia, but besides that, Texas football has been pretty disappointing, and 2021 was extremely disappointing. We now head into year 2 under head coach Steve Sarkisian, and the hype for the Longhorns program is once again out of this world. Led by their new superstar quarterback Quinn Ewers and a ton of other really fun options, some people think that Texas football is a dark horse playoff contender and could win the Big 12 in year 2 under Sark. In today's video, I want to talk about all the hype, go through what happened last year, and basically preview the entire 2022 Texas team. We'll talk about the returning players, their schedule, my thoughts, and overall where I have them. I'm excited to do a lot of previews, and if you want me to talk about your school, let me know down below. Without further ado, let's just get started though. In order to understand how Texas is going to do in 2022, let's first take a look back at the 2021 season. Led by their new quarterback Hudson Card, the Longhorns would take care of number 23 Louisiana in a Week 1 home win. Many thought this would set the tone for the 2021 season, but in fact it did not. They would have many struggles, and that would start in Week 2. They go on the road to Arkansas, where they get pounded 40-21, and basically gave the Longhorns program a major reality check. They didn't really have a good quarterback, so now Casey Thompson would take over. They would beat Rice, and then Thompson would have a spectacular showing against Texas Tech, but they would almost fall victim in Week 5 to TCU. They barely survived that game 32-27, but at this point, the Longhorns were 4-1 and a top 25 team. Bijan Robinson had emerged as a legitimate Heisman contender, and now they would play against their arch rival Oklahoma. They would take a very early controlling lead, but as we all know, Rattler struggled, Caleb Williams began to play well, had that miracle pass to Marvin Mims, and then the rest was history. Oklahoma came all the way back, and Kennedy Brooks sealed the win with a game-winning touchdown with pretty much no time remaining. This seemingly was a death blow to Texas, as that 55-48 defeat dropped them to 4-2, and then put them on a losing streak. They would blow a lead against number 12 Oklahoma State the following week, and then lose 32-24 in that one. Then they lost a one-possession game to Baylor, and then things got really bad. At this point, they were 4-4, and the next 4 games were huge in deciding their fate. How did they start? Well, they lost 30-7 on the road against Iowa State, and then had an all-time low moment. Against Kansas, the Jayhawks found themselves down 7. They would score a touchdown and would decide to go for 2 with no time remaining. They would complete the pass, and they would beat Texas 57-56, sending the college football world into a spiral, and Texas football was now in the dumpster. They were 4-6, but if they could just win 2 more games, they would still be able to salvage their season and get to a bowl game. The season officially came to an end as they lost 31-23 on the road against West Virginia, so their 22-17 victory over Kansas State pretty much meant nothing. The Longhorns went 5-7 with a 3-6 record in the conference, and were apparently in talks of being invited to a bowl, but did decline. After being up multiple possessions with a 4-1 record against Oklahoma, the season spiraled out of control after that game, and as we know, they lost 6 of their last 7 matchups. Texas football was extremely disappointing in 2021, but there's a lot of reason for optimism in 2022. Let's take a look at that. I'm not a Texas football expert by any means, so I'm just going to try to do a quick rundown of all the players, the returning production, and all of that. When you take a look at their 2022 recruiting class, it ranked 5th in the country. It was headlined by 2 5-star recruits, both of which were 5-star in-state offensive linemen. Sarkisian knows to have a winning program, you need to do well in the trenches, and that's why both Devon Campbell and Kelvin Banks will likely have an opportunity to play right away, and will be literally big foundational pieces for this program moving forward. There are plenty of other guys in the class to get excited about, but you can take a look at that on your own time. When you take a look at their transfer portal haul, this is where things start to get really fun. They obviously brought in the home state savior in Quinn Ewers from Ohio State. They got a Guy Hall from Alabama, Jaleel Billingsley from Alabama, Isaiah Nayor from Wyoming, and a corner from Ohio State by the name of Ryan Watts. Before the Ajayi Hall addition, the class was ranked number 8 in the country, and I'm sure it went up from there. So now that we have that out of the way, let's take a look at this offense. At quarterback, you're going to have Quinn Ewers. Yes, there is a quarterback battle, but everyone knows Ewers is going to win, and apparently from everything I've seen and read, it is Ewers' job to lose. He's a dark horse Heisman contender, and I think the Texas season sways on how good he is. But don't forget the other 2 options. Hudson Card started a couple games last year and was also a highly ranked recruit coming out of high school, so if Ewers goes down, Card is a great backup option. They also have their true freshman big-time recruit in Malik Murphy, who I think is a project player and will definitely need some time. When Steve Sarkisian was asked if there was a quarterback battle at Texas, he said, quote, We say focus on what you need to focus on and continue to work on the things you need to work on. We're a highly competitive program, and the best guy that gives our team the best chance to be successful will play. That's one of those quotes that you can't really read into too much, and it protects the feelings of the players and doesn't really give a lot of insight. My bet, Quinn Ewers starts week 1 and doesn't lose that job over the next 2 years. But injuries or anything else could happen, so I don't know. But I think Texas is fine at the quarterback spot. Next up, as we talk about the running backs, we all know who's there. It's Bijan Robinson. He was a Heisman contender last year as he made highlight play after highlight play. The former 5-star recruit from Tucson, Arizona, had 700 yards and 4 touchdowns as a true freshman, but really broke out last year as he ran for 1,127 yards with 11 touchdowns rushing and 4 touchdowns in the receiving game. He did get hurt and kind of limped to the finish line last year, but expectations are really high for him, and I've seen him as a Heisman contender and a first-round pick in a lot of 23 mock drafts. Behind him, you're going to have Roschon Johnson, who is an upperclassman who has been in the program for a while, and then you'll have former Alabama transfer Keelan Robinson. Those are the 3 guys to watch, but also don't rule out true freshman Jaden Blue, who at one point I believe was ranked a 5-star running back. Wide receiver is where things get really fun in my opinion, and there are so many guys to talk about. After flipping from Michigan to Texas, true freshman Xavier Worthy had an incredible first year. He caught 62 passes for 981 yards and 12 touchdowns. He was a freshman All-American and is expected to be one of the top returning receivers in the Big 12, if not in the country. He has the opportunity to become Quinn Ewers' main weapon in the passing game, and if those two live up to the hype, watch out, this could be a lot of fun. Isaiah Nayor was definitely in a much different spot. Instead of flipping from Michigan, he came from Wyoming. In 2020, he had a very limited role in the Cowboys offense, but in 2021, he would take off. He caught 44 passes for 878 yards and 12 touchdowns, while averaging 20 yards per reception. That's why when he entered his name into the portal, schools from all over the country wanted him. He eventually committed to Tennessee, but would later flip to the Longhorns, and I think will be a great number 2 option for them. I definitely think those two will be the 1-2 punch in the receiving game, but there are 5 other guys who I think could have a huge impact. The first is former tight end transfer from Bama Jaleel Billingsley, as he had NFL potential written all over him, but after off-the-field drama, he didn't really get an opportunity to play last year, and he could definitely be the top tight end for this team. You also have former 5-star Jordan Whittington, who many are still waiting to live up to the hype, and then you have Alabama transfer Ajayi Hall, former 4-star recruit Marcus Washington, and Troy O'Meara, who I've been hearing a lot about over the last 2 years, but should finally get an opportunity to play. I think Texas is one of the deepest wide receiver cores in the nation, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see who gets the ball. When you take a look at the defense, they returned 74% of their production from 2021, and while the Longhorns did not have a single player get drafted, Gary Patterson could help that as the former TCU coaching legend came in, and he has a couple guys I'm really excited to watch. Based on my research, there are 4 extremely important players on defense, and these are the guys to watch. Linebacker DeMarvion Overshone, defensive back Anthony Cook, defensive lineman Alfred Collins, and defensive lineman Moro Ojamo. There are definitely plenty of other names, and I'm really curious to see who breaks out, but the defense is honestly a worry of mine. There are 4 concerns for me for Texas football this year. The offensive line is apparently not in great shape. I'm worried that the pressure will be too much on Ewers and he's going to struggle his first year. The defense needs to step it up, and maybe, like always, there will be too much hype. I'll go in depth more later on those 4 topics, but right now, those are my concerns for the team. Now let's take a look at the schedule. In week 1, they're going to play against Louisiana Monroe, and I'm just going to chalk that one up as a W. In week 2, we have a huge game, which will be highly anticipated. Steve Sarkisian will face his former mentor in Nick Saban, as the Crimson Tide will come to Austin for a huge game that'll likely have College game day. While I think Bama will win this game, Texas has the opportunity to put themselves on the map, and maybe, just maybe, they pull off that upset. I don't think it's going to happen though, as for now I'm going to chalk that down as a loss, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. In week 3, they have a tricky trap game at home against UTSA, who was one of the breakout teams from 2021, but the Roadrunners lost a lot, and I don't think they're good enough to go on the road and beat Texas. This puts the Longhorns at 2-1. They then go on the road and play against Texas Tech, who will be under first-year head coach Joey McGuire. While there is a lot of hype about Texas Tech football in the future, right now they have too many holes on the offense and defense, and Texas is going to go on the road and win this game. From there, West Virginia comes to town, and in my opinion, they're the second worst team in the Big 12, as I don't know who their starting quarterback will be, who their top running back will be, and just overall, I'm not sold on the Mountaineers, and Neil Brown has a lot of work to do. Texas will get revenge after last year and win this game. At this point, they'll be 4-1 going into the Red River rivalry, and I'm going to make a bold claim. While I think Oklahoma will end up winning the Big 12, there is a lot for Brett Venables to figure out, and I'm not quite sure the Sooners will be clicking by then. I think this will be another classic Red River rivalry game, but after what happened last year, I think Texas is going to win this game in a thriller and get their 5th win of the year. From there, Iowa State comes to town, and while the Cyclones have been really good over the last 3 or 4 years, they have a lot to figure out as they have to replace both Brock Purdy and Breece Hall. I think the Cyclones will take a major step back this year, and Texas will win that game. After that, the Longhorns will head over to Stillwater, where they will play against Oklahoma State. There is a lot of hype for the Cowboys going into this year, and I don't think Texas will be good enough for them to win 11 games, so I had to pick one more loss in the schedule, and I think they're going to slip up on the road against the Cowboys. After that, they'll go on the road to Kansas State, which is a game that'll be tricky, but I think they will win. And then they get TCU at home. The Horned Frogs will be in their first year under head coach Sonny Dykes from SMU, and if this game was in Fort Worth, maybe I'd give the Frogs a chance, but right now I have Texas winning that game. I have them going on the road and beating Kansas. Then they have one final game at home against Baylor. I love Coach Aranda, and I do love the Baylor program, but I don't understand why they're currently a top 10 or top 15 team, as they have to replace their starting quarterback, their starting running back, and their best wide receiver. So there's a lot of holes in this Baylor team, and while I think Baylor will be good, I don't have them as a top 15 team right now, and that's why I have Texas beating them. So to quickly run down what I said, I think Texas will go 10-2, with their major wins coming over Baylor and Oklahoma, and their 2 losses coming to Oklahoma State and Alabama. That would likely put the Longhorns in the Big 12 championship game, and I do think Texas will live up to the hype this year. I think the expectation for Texas this year should be 8 to 10 wins, and at minimum making a bowl game. But with all these awesome weapons and a pretty favorable schedule, I think Texas finally has the opportunity to live up to the hype, and Sarkisian can take that major year 2 step. But what do you guys think? If you're a Texas fan, how do you guys think you'll do in 2022? What do you think of the roster and the schedule, and what did I get right and wrong? If you're a fan of any other school, please leave your thoughts down below. Give me a team I should cover in my next video, and also let me know what I got right and wrong. Before you go, don't forget to smash that like button if you want to support today's video and the channel. Subscribe if you are new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including all my other 2022 college football previews. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.